Got to feel sorry for him a bit, don't you?
That?
He's very sad, very sad. There's such a horrible anti-climax, isn't it? Look, what's his last game going to be? Huddersfield. With nothing on the line, no silverware, no nothing.
So what did you think the climax of the season was going to be?
A big Europa League final, go out on a high.
They're a bad team. They're not good. There's a reason why they're not even close to the top 4. They're not even close to the top 5. They're sitting 6th in the Premier League. They're not very good. So who really thought they were going to end up the season with anything?
If Arsene Wenger wanted to go out on a high, he could have gone out after any one of those FA Cup wins. But he's the one who stayed on. He's the one who wrote this anticlimactic end.
Heart of stones here in the studio, Julian. Surely a little bit of empathy for your fellow countryman as he bids adieu.
Oh,
that's French.
Yeah, yeah, I have a bit. But I also agree with the boys. You know, you don't in football. If there's no luck, that you don't deserve anything if you haven't, fought for it. And I don't think Arsenal were good enough over the 2 legs in the end. And I think Atletico could have won 3-0 tonight without problem at all. And yes, the first leg was a bit different, but they made mistakes. They've made mistakes all season. They've made mistakes the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years under Wenger, and they can't sort out those mistakes. Wenger was never capable of doing it, and it is a shame for him that he will end up that way. But was there any doubt that he will end up another way?
This game was just, well, I said it. It just seemed to epitomise these 2 teams perfectly.
Yeah. I always thought Atletico were in second gear.
Yeah.
And really, you got to look at the bare facts. The bare facts are that Arsenal had to go and win this game to get to the final of a European competition, and to come away with 1 shot on goal, which was from 35 yards. I mean, that tells its own story. So, listen, if All Black had been the man of the match, had been making saves left, right and centre, and the Arsenal were putting pressure on Atleti, then yes, we would have had some sympathy, and it would be sad. But the truth is, there's no reason to be sad. It was awful.
Look, no question the better of the 2 teams went through here. Arsenal are 6th in the Premier League table with good reason, and have come this far and deserve to be this far in the tournament. But once you came up against Atletico Madrid, you always felt that Atleti had the beating of Arsenal. At the same time, though, this is an Atleti team who surprised us all and getting knocked out in the group stage of the Champions League. And you felt that they were kind of holding position until Diego Costa came on board. He's now been a part of this team since January.
Yeah,
okay, didn't feature in the first leg. But even here, this was hard to watch. This was not the Atletico Madrid that we expected and everybody told us to expect once Diego Costa arrived in January. This was the backs to the wall, grind a result out, bore the opposition to sleep. Diego Costa took his goal well. I think had other opportunities to play teammates in and didn't. But all in all, not a lot has changed from Atleti.
Let's talk change, shall we, Jules? Do we know who's going to be the next Arsenal manager?
It's still the million-dollar question, really, Dan. I think they're making progress. I think they're talking to a few people. We've seen recently Zlatko Buvac, the Jurgen Klopp's assistant at Liverpool, being linked heavily with the job, which I don't think there's much truth in that. But it shows you that pretty much anyone and everyone is being linked to that job. And I think, it's not making Ivan Gazidis, Sven Mislintat, Raul Sanllehi's job easier. With all of that, you have to hope for Arsenal and the fans and everyone around this club that they make the right call and the right choice. It's a huge, huge choice coming. After 22 years of Arsene Wenger, and we've seen big clubs before, Manchester United, for example, and even Liverpool, getting it wrong after the departure of a very charismatic manager before. So it's a huge call, and they're still working on it, and they still have a bit of time left. But the pressure is getting bigger and bigger until they appoint someone.
What sort of task, whoever it is that comes in to replace him, have they got on their hands with this current squad?
I don't think there is any person capable of changing this squad right now into a top 4 side. Never mind winning a Premier League or competing for titles. And that means Arsenal needs an overhaul. And that means they're going to have somebody who comes in who is very disciplined, very strong, but of course, the board at Arsenal want to play a certain way. This guy coming in is going to have all these things, And that means that narrows it down to a very few.
There are decent players, though, aren't there, Shaq? Within that squad, you get some fresh blood, new coach, little bit of spark.
There are some good players in that squad. There are some good players in that squad, and yes, you do need fresh blood. The challenge here is you don't have European football to offer. So automatically, all things being equal, there are a lot better options if you want to move to either English football or to big European clubs. So you're going to have to find somebody who can work with maybe not Europe's brightest stars and form them.
They can still attract decent players, sure.
You can attract decent players, but all things being even, let's say Spurs and Arsenal are after the same player. Let's assume Spurs finish top 4, and Spurs is a better option if Spurs can offer that player Champions League football. Or do you go to Atletico Madrid or Arsenal? Because they can offer Champions League football. The options are endless.
But what they can guarantee you is first-team football. There aren't many clubs of that. So you mentioned Spurs, Liverpool as well. You know, you're in a situation.
Hold on a second. Let's look at this in the bare facts. You're telling me that a player with ambition who wants to get to the very top, unless he's a teenager, is going to go to a side who, in the depth charts, from where you want to be to where they are, you're probably going to have to step over a dozen, 15 teams around the world. So really, going to the team that's 16th or 17th, you ain't getting anybody who thinks they're going to be ending up at the very top.
As a comparison, I think Juventus have done a fantastic job at bringing in players who may be surplus to requirements elsewhere. Douglas Costa, Sami Khedira, Cuadrado, the list goes on and on. Now, and I know this is a desperately unfair comparison, but if Douglas Costa has a choice between going to Juventus and going to Arsenal, it's going to be Juventus all day long, because you can get Champions League football. You might go to Arsenal and be guaranteed a starting spot, but what Juventus can offer, just in terms of Champions League, that's the bigger attraction for players of that ilk.
And by the way, Arsenal are not buying their way out of trouble. You know that for sure.
Jules, who's their new manager going to be? You told me you knew.
Well, that's the million-dollar question still, Dan. And I think they're making progress. I think, Ivan Gazidis, the CEO, Sven Mislintat and Raul Saniele, who are, in charge of recruitment, if you want, or director of football, whatever you want to call it, are making progress. But I don't think they're near appointing anyone. I think there's a lot of candidates. We've seen recently against Zlatko Buvac, who is Jurgen Klopp's assistant at Liverpool, who's stepping down from that role at Liverpool, being heavily linked with Arsenal. I don't think there's much truth in it, but it shows you that pretty much everyone and anyone is being linked with this job, which I don't think makes Arsenal's job easier to appoint someone. So they will get there. They still have a bit of time, but the pressure is growing as long as, they're waiting to appoint someone. So I think they will let the season end and Wenger having his farewell, and after that only they will appoint someone. But it's a huge call. They can't get it wrong, because as the boys have been saying, the situation is bad enough already that if you get the wrong man in charge, it's going to get worse and worse, and they just can't afford that right now.
Jimmy Pallotta, the Roma president, said, I turn on the TV at 4 a.m. to ESPN FC and you have Alejandro, whatever the hell his name is, making a stupid comment about, oh, let's face it, Roma's not a good team. We reached out to Pallotta and he will be on the show next week, so you can have a nice chat with Ali, whatever the hell his name is. We'll look forward to that. Now, obviously, a lot of people got in contact with the show to say, oi, wait a minute. You said Roma aren't a very good team. Look what they achieved this season. They got out a group that included Chelsea and Atletico Madrid. They beat Shakhtar and they knocked out Barcelona with that comeback. They're third in Serie A. They were knocked out of the Coppa Italia. Well, they don't mention that bit. Anyway, so what all the talking point is, once again, is injustice when it comes to Italian football. The front page of Gazzetta. Another injustice, of course, bringing it back as well to what happened in the Juve-Real Madrid game. This is what Florenzi had to say after the match. We conceded 7 goals over 2 legs, but we conceded a goal that was offside in the first leg, then the penalty on Edin Dzeko, who wasn't offside, and the really obvious one with a handball, which would have been a red card. We could have gone 3-2 up and attempt the miracle. Fazio adds to it. He says it's a pity about today, especially with 2 incredible penalties not given to us, plus the referee only gave 3 minutes of stoppage time. Just going back to what Pelota said away from Ali, other than one mistake that Nangolan made and a mistake where Dzeko got pushed almost outside the box on their second goal, we actually played a really good game. If we don't get VAR in the Champions League, then stuff like this is an absolute joke. I think my favourite quote from everyone is Monchi. It's time to raise our voices, not just Roma either, as Juventus suffered the same against Real Madrid. Italian football has to raise its voice because what we saw tonight was shocking. I'm Spanish, I arrived here a year ago, but I think it's time Italian football raises its voice because this is not normal. Have they got a point?
Absolutely not. They were so good as a team going forward that 3 of the 6 goals were handed to them. They were so good as a defensive unit that not only did they lose 7 goals over 2 games, they could have lost a dozen goals over 2 games. If you're going to blame the referee, you better have been clearly the best team, you better be squeaky clean, you better not have had decisions given to you, and it has to be either a or a few extremely obvious decisions that have totally gone against you, and that is the only reason you're out. But that just is not true. Roma are out because they got beaten by a better team. Roma are out because they can't defend, and as I said, lost 7 goals. And Roma are out not only blaming the referee, but not thanking the referees over the 2 legs for giving them penalties they shouldn't have. They never sent off Florenzi, who should have... You know, there are so many things that went against Liverpool as well that, of course, doesn't matter to Roma. So don't blame the referee unless your house is clean. And their house is far from clean.
Shaq, before we hear from you, I want to bring Gab Marcotti into the show. Gab, what do you make of what Stevie just said?
I think he has a point. I mean, if we sit down and we go through all the individual incidents and we tally them up and we weigh them up, then there were a lot of things that went against Liverpool too. And it doesn't change the fact that over 120 minutes, Liverpool probably were, or not probably, I think they were the better side. All of that said, football doesn't work that way. A make-up call in the 93rd minute, which is clearly what Roma's last goal was, doesn't make up for the impact that, you know, a penalty early on would have had. Incidents like this change the flow of games, and I can understand how, out of all the incidents that we mentioned, you know, Dzeko's, the goal that led to the Liverpool second goal, and Florenzi on Mane and whatnot, you know, there is one that stands out above everybody else, which legitimately would have had a huge impact because it was early enough in the game and it was a penalty and a sending off, and that was Trent Alexander-Arnold's handball, and that is what they focused on after the game. And remember, they come from a league that has VAR, that by and large is happy with VAR, and they say, well, wait a minute, why don't we have this in big games? Surely it's worth it in a big game to get rid of all this nonsense.
I get it, Gab, but do they genuinely believe that the UEFA officials met in a darkened room before this match and thought, you know, we really want Liverpool to go through, so we've got to give them all the calls ahead of Roma? This is just mistakes. It's just errors. There's no conspiracy, is there?
Dan, that's ridiculous. Nobody said that.
Nobody said that. Monchi said it's time for the Italians to stand up and to fight against these injustices.
Yes, and what he's talking about is VAR.
So why bring up Juventus? Why does he bring up Juventus, Gab? It's completely and utterly unnecessary. If you're going to say...
No, it's not. Dan, maybe you weren't paying attention before. But Juventus made the point that they want VAR straight away. Roma made the same point. Napoli made the same point. The head of UEFA's referees, who happens to be Italian, Pierluigi Collina, together with other people at UEFA, think that it's not ready for the Champions League. That's what he's talking about when he says we need to make our voices heard, we need to get more respect, blah, blah, blah. And the implication is that if Real Madrid wanted VAR, you'd have VAR tomorrow. That's what he's driving at. He's not talking about a conspiracy in a darkened room. So, nobody except for some fool with a tin hat actually believes that.
I tell you what, I absolutely disagree with it 100%. There's no way anybody can sit down and read those comments from Monchi and say he's talking about VAR. It's impossible. It's impossible to come to that conclusion that he's only solely talking about VAR.
It's entirely possible if you look at the whole quote.
Well, I tell
He
you
talked
what.
for like 20 minutes. You're only picking one thing
you're
out
the
of
only
it.
person.
He doesn't think there's a
You're the only
conspiracy
person
against
over
them.
the last 24 hours that I know that has actually taken that from that statement.
Right, Shaq.
Let me say, I think the comments you're getting from the Roma camp are pointing to a lot more than VAR. Regardless of how it's framed at this point, there's a deeper suggestion to that. And as much as I understand the emotion, as much as I sympathize with the hurt, especially going out in this manner, especially how you come back and you got the miracle against Barcelona, to come this close and not get through, again, it hurts. But when the dust settles, you have to understand that Roma were 5-0 down after the first leg. And as much as you may want to point to the first goal being offside, you know that this is a two-legged tie, and this is 180 minutes. And if the first goal is offside, that doesn't mean that you throw caution to the wind and just gamble and play yourself out of this game. Now, the fact that Liverpool let them back in, both at the back end of the first leg and the back end of the second leg, points to Liverpool's issues, which we've spoken about in depth.
No, but Shaka, I'm sorry. This is what annoys people, right? It's Liverpool letting them back in because Roma are a bunch of stiffs. As Ali said the other night, they're no good at anything. They can't do anything. The only way they score is if the referee gives them stuff, or if Liverpool are so bad, they let them get back in.
Gav,
the fact of the
Gav,
matter is,
hold on.
the last 45
wait,
minutes,
stop.
when they were down and out, they did their best and they scored.
Any good European team at this stage of the competition, 5-0 up, you do not concede too late on. You're 2-1 up away from home to go through. You do not concede late on. I'm sitting next to a man who's played in great European teams, and they would not make those mistakes. We've criticized this Liverpool team for doing exactly this. Don't go there with me. Not today, Gav. No.
All right. Shaka, as I recall, Real Madrid are 3-0 up at home on aggregate against Juventus.
And we
what
didn't
do
criticize them.
They concede 3 times, but I guess they're a rubbish team too, with your mate Keylor Navas in goal.
We made the same criticism about them, Gav.
Everybody's bad. Nobody's good. Everybody's bad.
We made the exact same criticism about them. We made the exact same criticism about Barcelona. But Roma are immune to the same criticism when they make those same mistakes?
Gab, can I ask you a question?
Well, no, Roma didn't make... Yeah.
We go back to the Monchi statement, right? There's a line in there that 100% gives it away that he's not talking VAR. When he says, I'm Spanish, I'm not even Italian. What does that got to do with VAR? That is 100% saying it's the Italians that are getting stiffed every single time. Why does he bring that up?
We're running out of time. I just want to get Julian's point of view on everything you've heard, Jules, from the boys. What's your take on it?
I understand Roma's frustration, and I think that they're a better team than Ali, made them out to be. But I think Bayern Munich got harshly done by referees' mistakes as well, and so did Manchester City. And I didn't hear them complaining as much as Roma did. And I'm sorry, you lose a football match, you have to take some responsibility. Okay, the referee was poor over the 2 legs. There were mistakes made. There were mistakes made against Roma and for Roma as well. And over those kind of games, I think it balances. And I think Roma can be frustrated, but I still think Liverpool were the better side overall. But Roma deserve credit for how far they went still in this competition.
Welcome to Extra Time. It has been a feisty old day in the studio, which included the Shaka Go to Gab, not today. Which I think
Hold on a second. Hold on. He did do that.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. He did
That's your interpretation.
definitely with that.
No, not at all.
Not today, Gab.
You should have done that at the end.
Of course, what sparked this debate, everything that's been said after that Roma exit from the Champions League. Gab, we were talking about the quote from Monchi in a way that he was suggesting that there seems to be that something has to be done to give Italian football a fair chance against the other big boys. You alluded to the fact that this was all about VAR.
He talked at length, and he spoke about VAR at the beginning, and he spoke about VAR at the end. This is a different issue from, for example, the point that some Juve officials made about Michael Oliver being appointed and why couldn't they get a more experienced referee. Well, the reason he didn't get a better referee for that game, or a more experienced referee, I should say, was because Real Madrid won 3-0 away. You got to get these guys experience at some point. This seemed like a logical appointment. Here, Damir Skomina is one of the most experienced referees UEFA have. He's one of the most highly regarded, certainly in the top 5, I'd say. And he just had an absolute stinker of a game, making mistakes left, right, and center. Not just mistakes that hurt Roma, but loads of mistakes that hurt Liverpool as well. So he wasn't talking about that. He was talking about the fact that, and I think this is pretty clear in what he said about VAR. That when when they asked about VAR, they said no, not now. We're not ready. Boom.
Say he is talking about VAR. They also have VAR in the Bundesliga, yes. But we don't see all of this rhetoric, all of this crying come out of Germany when they've got a great point as well if they point to the fact that Marcelo handball. The fact is, you lost the match, you weren't the best team over the 2 legs, deal with it.
All right, that's good for you to say. I thought Bayern were the best team over the 2 legs.
Wait,
maybe you feel differently.
I'm not
but then again, you used to work for Real Madrid TV, so you would say that, wouldn't you?
I'm talking about Roma are crying, and yet Bayern just seemed to be right. Let's move on. Manchester City didn't cry and start talking about VAR.
Because you stick a
and
microphone in somebody.
Theories.
Excuse me, come on, Dan. Seriously.
What?
They had a second half where they put 3 goals back against Liverpool. Right? They came back from the dead. They had one enormous decision that went against them. Amidst other decisions, some went for them, some went against them. You stick a microphone in front of their face after the game. What are they going to say? They're going to moan. And by the way, it's not just some weirdo Italian disease. How often did we hear about the guy in Manchester going on about Frisk and UNICEF and stuff like that when they played Barcelona? It wasn't that long ago. This is all stuff we've heard before. People complain after games. He's not saying that anybody was paid off. He's not saying there's a vast conspiracy. He's saying, why can't we get VAR, essentially? And you can parse the quote out any way you want, but that is what he was saying.
Julian has been with us all this time as well. What do you make of what Gab's saying, Jules?
No, I think Monchi was talking about VAR a little bit, and I saw the whole quotes and I saw everything that was said in the mix zone. I think he was also talking about what PSG have been talking before, that certain clubs are not helped by referees, are not really helped by UEFA, and it's not UEFA doing on purpose to harm smaller clubs or things like this. But I think a lot of clubs are feeling a bit aggrieved like that after matches like these ones, or ones that we've seen earlier in the season or last season as well. So
George,
you're
sounding like they're making a point, that they have a valid point that smaller clubs, although it's only Liverpool, the bigger clubs get the call because of UEFA. But then I suppose if you turn it back to the leg before, why didn't they make sure that Barcelona went through?
No, I'm not saying that they tried in the first game. That's not what I'm saying.
Go on, Gab.
I was going to say, if anybody'd watched the first leg, one would have gotten that impression as well. Look, Barcelona got all the calls in that first leg. But look, the fact is, bigger clubs tend to get bigger calls. There's nobody who's going to dispute that. It's also true that this does not apply in this game because Liverpool had a ton of calls go against them. And by the way, if there's one English club that does not have a lot of clout or gravitas for many reasons with UEFA, it's probably Manchester City, but after Manchester City, it would be Liverpool. So, let's not go there with that. This is not the allegation that's being made there. He's complaining specifically about a decision and how this incredible comeback, or what could have been an incredible comeback, just goes up in smoke because of bad refereeing, which then leads to people saying, oh, look, Roma are not a very good team. How can they be a good team? They gave up all these goals. Well, you know, that's what's frustrating when you've worked so hard to get yourself in that situation and you don't have VAR, which evidently not everybody's happy with, but they're very happy with.
So Roma are guilty of just sending out the wrong message. Is that what you're saying? They're just guilty of not...
Their message is pretty obvious. If people want to turn it around and say, oh, look, they're just whining again,
hey, the rest of the living, breathing world thinks that they're crying because they've got decisions against them and that everything's set up for them to get stiff. That is the impression they've given the rest of the world. Now, you might have read Monchi's quotes and looked at them and thought them a different way, but the majority of the rest of the world that actually goes and listens and reads to it is taking it the complete opposite way. So it's just a case of, I'm sorry, I've put it the wrong way. We don't think the refs are against us at all.
But it's not just Monchi, Gad, Florenzi, Fazio, obviously Pallotta as well. This seems to be very much the narrative coming out of the club.
Well, no, look, Florenzi and Fazio complain. I'm sorry, I think every single footballer in the world, after you go off the pitch after 90 minutes, you're not going to sit there and do a forensic analysis.
I didn't hear Bayern players doing it,
you. And you expect Florenzi to say, oh, yeah, we had 2 penalties. Oh, yeah, but then you know what? I really should have been sent off for that nasty foul on Sadio Mane. Wait, what are we talking about here?
Well, Bayern,
you know, you stick a microphone in front of somebody in the mix zone, they're going to be angry, okay, if they had major decisions go against them. I think it's pretty human. I think it's pretty normal that people care about this.
Well, clearly Bayern players must be different then. Bayern players are different. Maybe
Bayern players also complained. We just didn't do a whole show on it. It's not like they said, "Oh, you know what?
Come on, tell me."
Unlucky. Good thing those decisions.
Tell me.
Good thing those decisions even out in the end, right?
Tell me
Jerome
one of them.
Boateng didn't go.
Listen, I'm just asking for one.
I tell you one of them, Jerome Boateng. Look at his Instagram account.
One of the players who played in the game, who straight after the game in the mix zone, because how dare they put a microphone in highly paid, experienced players? How many of them turned around and said it was the referee's fault we get knocked out? Please tell me.
Nobody said it was the referee's fault, but all of them complained about the decisions that went against them. Mats Hummels.
So they didn't say it was the referee's fault. There
Remember
you go.
Him? What? I didn't say. Nobody said it was the referee's fault.
You said it was a perfectly natural thing to do.
Against them.
Clearly, it's not, unless you play for Roma.
Do you have anything else to say?
It's normal for most people. Well, it's not. Excuse me. Sal, listen. The other Europa League semi-final today, right? Salzburg against Marseille. I'm sure Julian was watching that one. Did you see the Salzburg coach, that nice man in the gray jumpsuit, and the guy getting sent off because they gave the corner the wrong way, and Marseille scored the goal? No, right? Are those guys Italian too? Is Salzburg a province of Rome now?
How dare they get a corner wrong?
Have we reached the end?
I hope so.
Is that it? Shaggy, would you like to say anything else? Do you want to say to us? Not today.
Not today.
Today.
Not today.
ESPN FC returns to your screens tomorrow. We'll be looking ahead to our Classico. Just a reminder, ESPN Plus, the new exclusive home of our show.